Beyond the bruises, recognizing and dismantling professional abuse. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt your shoulders tense? That moment when you realize you're scanning for the safest place to sit, calculating which comments to let slide, and mentally rehearsing how to deflect the microaggressions you know are coming. That tension, that calculation, that's not normal and it's certainly not okay. I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Ashley June, whose groundbreaking work exposing the many faces of professional abuse has transformed how we understand workplace harm. Ashley isn't just a researcher, she's a revolutionary, dismantling systems of oppression one uncomfortable truth at a time. Her commitment to creating equitable workplaces where Black professionals can thrive without compromise has quite literally changed thousands of lives and reshaped entire industries. What struck me most during our conversation wasn't just the depth of her knowledge, but the fierce compassion that fuels her mission. As she puts it, the most dangerous lie we've been told is that professional abuse is just paying your dues. Let that sink in for a moment. We've normalized suffering as a prerequisite for success. And for Black women especially, we've been conditioned to believe that our discomfort is the price of admission to space never designed for us in the first place. It's as if we're expected to be grateful for the opportunity to be uncomfortable. Absurd, isn't it? But here's the truth bomb Ashley dropped that changed everything for me. Abuse isn't just about bruises. It's not just hands that leave marks. Professional abuse takes forms so normalized we've stopped seeing them. The passed over promotion, the stolen ideas, the feedback that somehow always focuses on your tone rather than your talent, the expectation that you'll represent your entire race in every meeting while simultaneously being told not to make everything about race. And when I tell you that Black professionals are carrying a double burden, that's not hyperbole, that's data. According to Ashley's research, nearly every Black solicitor surveyed had experienced bullying or microaggressions based on their ethnicity. Every single one. Imagine walking into work each day knowing, not wondering, but knowing that your professional value will be undermined because of your skin color. That's not just stressful, it's soul crushing. Let me paint this picture more clearly with the real example Ashley shared. In a major urban hospital, Black women in caregiving roles reported persistent racist abuse from both employers and patients. These weren't isolated incidents, they were daily occurrences. They were routinely overlooked for promotions despite qualifications. They endured racial slurs masked as jokes. They faced stereotypes about their competence, their intelligence, their very humanity. And when they reported these incidents, silence, dismissal, the subtle suggestion that perhaps they were being too sensitive. Or my personal favorite, that's just how Dr. So and so is with everyone. Except it wasn't with everyone, was it? It was targeted, it was deliberate, and it was harmful. Does any of this sound familiar? I see those nods. I see the knowing glances. I see the pain of recognition in your eyes. But here's where the story shifts and why Ashley's work matters so profoundly. After years of complaints being minimized, these women organized, they documented, they demanded to be heard not as individual grievances, but as evidence of a systemic problem. They refused to be gaslit into believing their experiences weren't real. And something remarkable happened. The hospital finally launched an anti racism task force. They implemented mandatory training across all departments. They created transparent promotion criteria that eliminated bias prone cultural fit assessments, which, let's be honest, has always been code for looks and thinks like us. The result? Increased reporting of incidents because people finally felt safe enough to speak up. Policy changes that addressed root causes, not just symptoms. And most importantly, a more supportive environment where Black staff members could focus on saving lives instead of navigating hostility. That hospital is now recognized regionally as a model for addressing structural racism by doing the one thing too many institutions refuse to do: listening directly to those most impacted. Imagine that. Actually listening to people when they tell you they're being harmed. Revolutionary, isn't it? But Ashley is quick to point out that individual courage must be met with organizational change. One without the other creates martyrs, not movements. In another powerful example she shared, a mid sized tech company faced recurring issues with workplace harassment, particularly targeting employees of color. The problem wasn't just offensive jokes circulating in emails, it was the culture that made people feel those jokes were acceptable in the first place. It was the silent bystanders. It was the HR department more concerned with protecting the company from lawsuits than protecting employees from harm. The turning point came when one employee, just one, decided they'd had enough and escalated the issue externally. That single act of courage forced executive action. Sometimes it takes just one voice to crack open the dam of silence. The company instituted anonymous reporting channels. They made comprehensive anti harassment training mandatory for everyone. Yes, including the C suite executives who thought they were above such things. They outlined clear consequences for perpetrators, regardless of rank or revenue generation. No more protecting the brilliant jerks who bring in business but destroy morale. And guess what happened? Reports increased initially because people finally had safe channels, but then declined as toxic behaviors were addressed swiftly and publicly. Employee satisfaction skyrocketed, retention improved, innovation flourished, all because someone refused to accept abuse as the cost of doing business. But let's be real, speaking up carries risks, especially for Black women who are often labeled difficult or not team players for the same behaviors that earn white colleagues praise for leadership and directness. The double standard isn't subtle, it's glaring. This is where Ashley's third insight becomes crucial. Prevention requires both individual courage and organizational change. We need brave voices, yes, but we also need systems that don't punish those voices for speaking truth. The legal profession offers a particularly stark example. Research conducted by legal associations found that minority lawyers experience significantly lower retention rates, traced directly to elitist attitudes, exclusion from key projects, subtle put downs during meetings. My personal favorite: you're so articulate, as if eloquence from a Black person is somehow surprising. An open ridicule or dismissiveness around cultural identity. All of these contributed to burnout, stress, and ultimately exodus from the profession. It's not that Black lawyers couldn't handle the work, it's that they couldn't handle the constant undermining of their humanity while doing that work. But some firms decided to break this cycle. They implemented mentorship programs specifically tailored toward minority associates. They conducted unconscious bias workshops targeting senior partners and managers. They expanded whistleblower protections so junior lawyers could speak up safely. The results: improved retention, equitable promotions, and firm reputations that actually attracted top talent. instead of driving it away. Because talented people, especially talented Black people, have options. And increasingly, they're choosing workplaces that value their whole selves, not just their billable hours. Now, I can feel some of you shifting uncomfortably. Maybe you're thinking, but not all workplaces are like this. Or perhaps I've never personally witnessed this kind of abuse, to which I would gently suggest look again, listen differently. Because here's what Ashley taught me: the most insidious forms of professional abuse are the ones we've been conditioned not to see. They're the paper cuts of workplace culture, individually small, collectively devastating. When a Black colleague goes quiet in meetings, do you assume they're just introverted? Or might they have learned that speaking up leads to being interrupted, dismissed, or having their ideas attributed to someone else? When turnover among Black employees is high, is it really just about better opportunities elsewhere? Or might it reflect a culture where belonging requires assimilation and advancement requires perfection? These questions aren't comfortable. They're not meant to be. Growth rarely happens in comfort zones. But here's the beautiful truth Ashley's work reveals: when we create workplaces where everyone can thrive, everyone thrives. This isn't a zero sum game where addressing abuse somehow diminishes opportunity for others. Quite the opposite. Companies with diverse leadership outperform their peers by 36%. Teams with inclusive cultures are 17% more likely to report high performance and 20% more likely to make quality decisions. The business case is clear. The moral case is clearer. So, where do we go from here? How do we transform this awareness into action? I challenge you today to become what Ashley calls active witnesses rather than passive bystanders. When you see something, say something, not later in private, but in the moment publicly. Use your voice, your position, your privilege to interrupt patterns of harm. I challenge you to examine your own workplace with fresh eyes. Who feels safe there? Who is thriving? Who is merely surviving? And what role are you playing in maintaining that status quo? I challenge you to believe people when they tell you they're being harmed, even when, especially when, their experience differs from your own. Listening is the first act of allyship. And most fundamentally, I challenge you to reject the notion that professional success must come at the cost of human dignity. We can build workplaces that are both high performing and deeply humane. We can create cultures where excellence doesn't require erasure. As Ashley June so powerfully reminds us, we are not asking for special treatment. We are demanding the basic respect and dignity that should be the birthright of every human being who walks through those doors. The path forward isn't easy, but it is clear. It requires courage, yes. But more than that, it requires commitment, a daily decision to create workplaces where professional abuse is neither expected nor accepted, where safety is the standard, not the exception, where differences are celebrated, not merely tolerated. Because when we dismantle the systems that enable professional abuse, we don't just create better workplaces, we create a better world. A world where talent isn't squandered, where innovation isn't stifled, where human potential isn't capped by the accident of birth. That world is possible. It's necessary. And with your help, it's inevitable. Thank you.